Thank you for joining me on the Southern Report. Utter privilege to have the company of your time. If you are not connected to the channel, then please like and subscribe. I would be very indebted to you. I've parachuted in. My dear guest, Mr. John Haller, has just parachuted in via his trip to Israel. So we are going to catch up with him and find out about his trip. John, good to see you. Thank you for parachuting in safely. You're looking well after that experience, sir.
I actually flew right over the UK on the way back. You probably weren't watching, so
Brilliant. So you have 2 days ago, we're recording this on Thursday. I think or 3 days ago, you flew back on Monday of this week. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for your messages while you were away and the photographs that you shared, and also where you were on the trip and what was happening. It was very much, I really appreciated that very much, and at times felt very much part of that experience. So, John, how was the trip? How does this rate compared to other trips that you have made?
well, I would say since I led it, it was the best one I'd ever been on, but that would be a bit of an ego. I mean, the feedback I got from people on the tour was that this was really the best one that they went on. I have for some time been concerned about what I call the land scandal in Israel. That I've been to places that Jewish people have never been, and that Jewish people would never go to. So, for example, about 8 years ago, Pam and I were able to go over there for a couple of weeks, and we spent a number of days going around some of the major archaeological sites in Judea and Samaria, often called the West Bank, with Joel Kramer. We went to, Jericho, Hevron, the Herodian in Judea area. Absolutely awesome sites. And then we went up to Shiloh, Bethel, Samaria, and now I'm going to forget some of the other ones we went to. But we did make it to all of those sites. Shechem. I forgot about Shechem, a major important biblical site in Nablus. And so when I was talking to a tour operator, a Jewish guy at the hotel in Jerusalem, I said, "Well, yeah, we went up," and he goes, "Well, did you get to see Shechem from the Mount Gerizim overlook, which is what we were able to do, because going into Nablus right now, which is a terrorist hotbed, is not really safe." But I told him that 8 years ago, I went into Nablus, and he looked at me like, "You're out of your mind. I can't believe anybody would go in there." So one of the parts of the trip, we went up to Samaria, north of Jerusalem, and we met up with Aaron Lipkin of Lipkin Tours, and he had a group of Orthodox. We had our Christian group. We had an Orthodox group from Israel 365 join us that day. And then we met up in Samaria, and we got on a bulletproof window bus and went to Joshua's altar near Nablus on Mount Ebal with the group. But we had an IDF escort in and out. And while we were there at Joshua's altar, there were drones flying over our heads. So there was they were very security conscious. Now, I assume they were Israeli IDF drones, but I'm not sure whether they were. When we flew in so I left here on Monday, October 6th, flew overnight from Newark, New Jersey. We left about 11. And so you get into Israel about 4:00 in the afternoon the following day because of the 7-hour time change. So as we're flying into Israel, they had pretty much shut off all the entertainment and everything. So I was kind of bored. So I was watching the approach. They have a map and screen to show the approach and where you are. And there's a countdown, so it goes 15 minutes, 10, 7, 5, 4, 2. And then when we hit 2, Pilot pulls up, makes a pretty steep turn, goes down, goes back up, makes some more. We fly around. They reset it to like 15 minutes. We come in again, and we get about 2 minutes from landing. He pulls up again and goes around the other way, reset it to about 17 minutes this time. Then we come in, get about 2 minutes, 1 minute away from landing. He pulls up again and goes around again. So we covered all of Israel from the Galilee region in the north to Gaza in the south, north to south, and then over the Mediterranean to the Jordan Valley. So I told the people on the tour that, this was planned so that they had a full tour of Israel in case something went wrong with the rest of the tour. But we flew out for 50 minutes. Apparently, there was either a drone that was hostile, or the IDF, I've now been told, might have been doing some testing of things, and something got away from them around the airport. So we had to circle around. So I asked the flight attendants. They said, yeah, we were on the verge of being diverted to Athens. We're flying it on Sukkot. It's October 7th. It's actually the 2-year our calendar anniversary of the attack 2 years ago. And I did ask the flight attendants if I could maybe, since we flew around for 50 extra minutes, could I get some more frequent flyer miles added to my account?
John, can I just say at this point that I am, I'm really number one in being your manager for your comedy tour, because I have said to you, like others, that I think John Haller needs to do stand up, and I really want to find those dates. But joking apart, no, that's quite a serious quite a serious situation that you may have found yourself in at that time.
Well, the flight attendants looked very nervous because where I was sitting, I could see a couple of them, and one actually on the other side of the plane came, and someone in our group said they had approached the one lady sitting on the right side of the plane away from me. I was in the center section, and said, "Are you with a Christian group?" And she said yes, and she said, "Would you please pray?" And there was never any announcement made, except we're gonna go around again. Well, then we went around 3 more times before we landed. But it was a wonderful trip in from the airport because it was Sukkot. It's a Shabbat day, and there was nobody on the road. Which, if you've been in Israel recently, you know that. I don't know if I should say this because it sounds. I joked with one of my friends. I said, well, it either had to be a holiday Shabbat or the rapture happened, but I'm not sure that the rapture happening would have taken out that many people in anywhere. And my view is that it's going to be whenever it happens, it's going to be a much less significant event than a lot of people sort of put a lot of things onto the rapture, that this will be the trigger that will cause all these other things to happen. That are already happening, So I disagree with my friends on some of this. But anyway, it was wonderful traffic. The roads were wide open all the way into Jerusalem. But then, when we came back from the north one day, we'd gone up to the Lebanon border area, Tel Dan, Caesarea Philippi, Golan Heights, and then we went down to Caesarea Maritime, and we came into Jerusalem. But there are 2 roads into Jerusalem over the mountains. From the coastal plain, and one of those was completely shut down for about 8 or 9 hours. Route 443. Route 1 was open, but all the traffic had to go on Route 1. So it took us what should have been about an hour, 15 minutes was about almost 3 hours to get in from the Mediterranean into Jerusalem. Just what had happened was somebody on a motorcycle shot and killed a couple guys on the highway. Of course, they had to shut it down for investigation. I don't think it was a terrorist attack. It might have been. There are different mafia mob type groups, both in the Palestinian areas and in the Jewish areas of Israel. And sometimes they get a little bit, just like the mob does in the UK, or the mob here in the US in New York. They sort of enact their own sense of justice on some of the others that they might disagree with.
Got you.
So it's like living the Godfather movie in a way. But anyway, so it was a tremendous trip. And so, as I said, one of the things I wanted to do on the trip was to take people to areas that other trips might not get to. If you look, there's a place called Friends of Zion Museum, and I think when we're there next week, there's an event over at the Friends of Zion Museum, which was started by Mike Evans. But it's a very Disney-esque type high-tech display place. They have statues that talk at you, and they have a map of Israel, and it's a 3D of the map is projected on the ground, and they show the tour of Israel. But you start at Caesarea, you go to Mount Carmel, you go to Nazareth, you go to the Sea of Galilee, the Golan Heights, come down through the Jordan Valley, you stop at Beit Shan, you stop at, go all the way down to Masada, the Dead Sea, come back up to Jerusalem. But what you miss on that tour is the biblical heartland, the central mountains of Israel. And that's why this dispute is so significant as to what's going on, because they're trying to erase the Jewish history of the existence of the people of Israel in the land of Israel. And they're doing it I think they're getting kind of desperate, because they're doing it at a time when the archaeological discoveries are massive, and all of them confirm the Bible. And and of course, the scholars will argue about that, and archaeologists have egos just like any other scholar. So a lot of them are like, well, if I didn't discover it, it can't be that significant. And then you sit down and you talk to the ones that did the discovery, and you get what these amazing findings that are taking place. But I'm telling you, I was there 3 years ago, just about, in 2022, and what's happened from 2022 to now is it's on a very high level of shocking in terms of what they're discovering and what they're uncovering. And a lot of that relates to the city of David, the southern steps of the temple. They're excavating under the Western Wall Plaza. They're excavating, and they're continuing to do excavations along the Western Wall that you can't see from the pictures. We see the Western Wall, where they go and pray. But that Western Wall that you see is less than 10% of the wall that's actually there. It goes from that area all the way up north. And so there's a couple tours you can take at the Western Wall Tunnel tours. We took the one called the Great Bridge Tour. And Mark, I don't know if you've been down there. If you haven't, we'll be sure to go down there when we're there in a couple weeks.
Can I just say that you and I, audience, we are attending the Christian Media Summit in Jerusalem in just over a week's time. And
I guess a week. I leave a week from Saturday. So I don't even know. Today is Thursday, I think. So 9 days I'll be leaving to go back. And somebody said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, I didn't really. My wife Pam's not able to go on the trip due to some foot issues. And one thing you don't want to have is foot issues when you go to Israel."
No.
By the way, it cracked me up. We're in Jerusalem or wherever we are. You put in Google Maps for walking directions, and every one of them say mostly flat. And I'm like, what moron at Google? So we talk about artificial intelligence and all that stuff, but it's moronic, because I would show people and they were like, well, that's not mostly flat. There's no flat space in any place you set something down in Jerusalem, like a ball, it's going to roll down hill someplace, or, and so I think it means smooth. You don't have to climb a wall. You don't have to rappel down a wall or get your equipment out to climb a wall or something like that. But some of the people have walking apps, and some days we were doing 40, 50, 60 or more stories elevation changes in some of the walks that we took. Well, I don't walk up 60-story buildings a lot in my life,
Yeah.
but in Jerusalem in Israel you get quite a workout. So
what's the average steps do you think you were doing? I mean, you're doing a minimum of 10,000 steps a day.
well, you always I had not we actually went to some sites that I'd never been to. So we went down, and I don't remember the name of the city. It's down in the Elah Valley, where David fought Goliath. And there's no doubt that this is the site. So we climbed up to where Saul had a city. He was king at that time. And it's a double gate city. I think it's talked about in 2 Samuel I think it's 2 Samuel chapter 21. There's a double gate city. That's the Jewish word. And we went with our guide that day was the son of the architect who found the double gate, confirming the Bible. And it's interesting when this happens, the non-biblical, excuse me, the non-biblical archaeologists immediately jump in and say, oh, well, the Bible's just a collection of stories. It's just sort of somebody's historical record that they wrote down to make themselves look good. And we can't accept it. Yet they'll accept the reliefs in Nineveh that Sennacherib and the other kings of Assyria made up, or other extra biblical resources. They accept the truth of those, but not the Bible. It's insane. All the Bible's dated later, but they ignore oral traditions and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So now I forgot what question you asked. Oh, so we went to the Valley of Elah. So we told everybody when we were leaving. Now, I'd not been there. It's a light day. We're going to go down there. We'll go up to the double gate. We'll go over to Lachish, and we'll be back in Jerusalem about 1 o'clock. So it's over an hour drive down there. It's down sort of towards the way to Beersheba and the south. And we get there and we walk, and it was about a 4-mile round trip.
Wow.
And the guy kept saying, well, we've done 95% of it, but then all the elevation changes and the last 5% really severe elevation change. So that, by the time we got done there, it was after 1 o'clock when we said everybody would be back to Jerusalem. So I'm not saying anybody misrepresented anything, but it certainly did turn out to be a light day. And then we went over to Lachish, and I'll be honest, I was tired, I was hot, and they have a phenomenal movie there of Lachish. I did not walk up to the top of the tell because it wasn't as far, but it was probably 30-story elevation change up and down. So I kind of had it at that point. So when we get back to Jerusalem, it's like 4:30 in the afternoon. So the light day turned into a full day and about 6 miles of hiking.
Wow. Just out of interest, how many people were on your tour?
I had kind of a regular tour, and then I had an extended tour. So we had 12 on the extended tour, and we had about 18 to 20 on the earlier tour. And then one lady came from Brazil to do the extended tour.
Really?
So, and nobody from my church. It was people from Canada, really wonderful people. Canada, Wisconsin, I think Nebraska or Kansas, California, Canada, England. So we had and then the one lady, a wonderful lady from Brazil came. So great trip.
Well, it's fantastic to have all those cross sections of people from different parts of the world and different states as well.
Yeah, and two of the ladies used canes, and another one had some sort of early in life foot issues, and most of them they made all the hikes up and down.
Yeah.
They were real troopers. And the walk out to Joshua's altar where you park is at least I'm going to guess a mile walk, and it's over really uneven terrain. I mean, it's you got to watch what you're doing. I was watching where I was going down in the city of David. We kind of went along the outside. We had done a tour all the way down through the steps and the dry tunnel and near Hezekiah's tunnel, and done all that earlier in the week. So we were going down the outside to get to the Pool of Siloam, which actually is the lowest point of Jerusalem. And I'm walking along, and I'm watching where I'm walking. And I walk right into a tree branch, and it wasn't a tree branch. It was like, this big around. So it made kind of a big crack. And I said, well, there goes another 0.2 IQ points off the list, out of my head.
Pam didn't make a comment that must have knocked some sense into you, John. She didn't.
No, she wasn't there, but she probably that would be assumed or presumed.
Assumed. Bless you, John. You've been out there at a very, very historic time because of the hostages release, the Trump peace plan, and various other events that have unfolded. What is your feeling, all that? What was it like to be there at that point? What's the mood you felt in Israel at the moment? It's a huge question.
It was an incredible time to be there. It was Sukkot, the holidays, the Feast of Tabernacles. And I was joking with someone, we've been here 7 days, and they've had 12 Shabbats. They seem to really love Shabbat, and which made it difficult when we went to certain places, because the Jewish sections would be just packed with people, and it's like a giant party in some respects. And then we'd go to other places, and depending on the day you were there, like we ended up in the Arab quarter of the old city, and it was just wall-to-wall people. You could hardly walk. Then you go to the Christian quarter, and there's nobody there. Our friend Nicole, who you've interviewed, we walked around over there one day. I mean, there was virtually nobody on the street. So tourism is still down, at least through this time, about 90% what it was a few years ago. It's had huge economic impacts on people. It seems to be coming back. I've got a number of friends who have tours this week in Israel that they're on. So it seems to be coming back, but not like anybody thought.
And I understand some airlines are sorting out their flights again to have direct flights to Tel Aviv. I think British Airways being one. So
yeah, I flew United out, Air Canada back, and I'll fly Delta next week. So they're coming back, but it's good. And but anyway, more to your point of your question, I told my group, I said, I think you need to understand that you are here at a time of an incredible convergence of the historical, biblical, archaeological, geopolitical, and prophetic convergence of all of these things that are happening all at once. So, for example, we were going to go to the Israel Museum one day, and we were supposed to go on Monday, but then some guy named Donald Trump decided that he was going to come to it's right next to the Knesset, so he was going to come to the Knesset. And how Israel handles security when there's a big VIP visitor like that is they just shut it down. They just shut everything down to be safe. We were at the Western Wall Plaza, and literally less than an hour after we went through by the Western Wall, Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump came with Steve Witkoff to the Western Wall. So, and both times Trump's gone to Israel, I've been in Jerusalem when he's been there, both his first term and his second term. So I don't know if he's stalking me or I'm stalking him.
Maybe he is. Maybe he's trying to make that phone call.
Well, I suggested that he and Bibi and I could go play golf on the one golf course in Israel, and Jared could caddy for us, but that didn't seem to gain much traction anyway.
I wonder why. But
So, but I, so, you know, that I wanted us to experience what's happened since October 7th. So just let me tell you a little bit about the structure of the tour. The first day we got there, we got on our bus, and because we had a small group, you get a big bus though that seats 60 people, so you can kind of spread out. It's quite nice. We would like to have more people, but we had enough. But God brought us everybody that should have been coming or needed to come. So then we went to Gaza, Gaza envelope. That's the area along the Gaza border. The first place we went to Kibbutz Kfar Aza. Kibbutz Kfar Aza is in a little bit south of Sderot. It's a little bit north of where the Nova Music Festival was going, but it was one of the first kibbutzim attacked on October 7th, 2023. On October 7th, 2023, 920 people lived at Kibbutz Kfar Aza. Now, 15. The buildings are heavily damaged. For example, there's a memorial. It's a surfboard set up in the one open, like a little park area there in the kibbutzim. It's a sort of a communal farming community, and 68 people were killed there on October 7th, 2023. I don't know how many were injured, but 18 were taken hostage. And while we were there on Wednesday, October the 8th, which was because of the Sukkot holiday, that was really the day everybody in Israel was recognizing the 2-year anniversary of October 7th. So there were still 2 hostages, twin guys, men that were still held hostage, subsequently released. And then a number of the homes where people were killed, they came in and killed them. And Mark, I mean, I know we're going down there with the media summit in about a week and a half to some of these kibbutzim. There are bullet marks all over the place. Like at the door entry, there's bullet marks at the perimeter fence. So we spent about 2 hours walking around the kibbutz. There's places where there's a surfboard, and that was a guy who was killed. They erected a surf. He liked to surf, and so he was there. They put a memorial there of what he liked. The homes were sort of living memorials, and they had pictures of how they found people. They had pictures of them, the people in their life. There was a home that we went to, this one street. They killed a lot of people on this street, and in their home, they would put on the outside, when the IDF came through, they'd put like a red target on the home, and they would maybe put a number under it to indicate the number of bodies inside. Because they had to inventory all these things and identify the people and figure out who was there and who was not. And then stories of little girls whose parents were shot and killed. They had covered them with their bodies. And the one little girl then, after an hour or so, she was able to get her mother's cell phone and call her grandmother. And they kept her on the line for hours till the cell phone battery went out. But they finally went and rescued the little girl. She was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old. And they kept her on the stories, it's everywhere you go. So there were 1,200 people killed on October 7th. There are 1,200 stories of the dead people. We, on our bus going down that morning, we had some people who work with the tour company. They're Orthodox Jews. The father they were the parents of a son who was working on the border in the IDF that day. I believe he's a combat medic. I believe he was also on the combat medic teams that went in to get some of the hostages when they were released last week. It seemed like it was 4 weeks ago, but it was just last week a little over a week ago that happened. But he when things started to unfold around 6:30 a.m. in the morning, he grabbed a vehicle, got his commander got his arm shot off. He had to treat that. I probably got it out of sequence. They went to the base. And when we think of bases for Americans, we think of a place where there's 40 or 50,000 troops. The bases there are 20 to 40 people. They're not massively occupied and armed bases or anything like that. But he went to his base and all 40 of them were dead. The idea of soldiers. So I asked the father, I said, so was your son injured on October 7th? And he said, the answer that was very wise, not physically, he said. So, we went to the Nova Music site. They have stands set up with a poster written on both sides of each of the 350 people killed. It's sort of set up around the stage. And of course, that day they had stage and they had singing and programs. And then a lot of the families had come. There were thousands of people there, similar to what had been there on the day that the attack occurred. But this was a Memorial Day, what they were celebrating is a 2-year anniversary of the attack. And you can talk to the families. And I mean, there's, so there was a young man, I believe the day after we were down there, his girlfriend had been killed on October 7th, 2023. I saw her poster because I saw her picture in the paper and I said, I just saw the memorial poster of her yesterday. Her boyfriend committed suicide the day after.
That is, I'd heard about that. Deeply tragic.
And so you walked through this field, and then we went to the car park where they had all the cars that had been hit by RPGs, and a lot of the terrorist cars too, including one of a tractor, a Kubota tractor that we've seen in some of the pictures coming through the fence. And Mark, I touched it. It's a concrete battering ram on the front. It wasn't out there plowing a field or anything. It was modified to do an attack. And then we went up to Sutter Road to meet at the cemetery in Sutter Road at the grave of the first police officer killed. And his widow came and spoke to us for about an hour about her life and what happened that day. He kissed me goodbye at 7:02 a.m. He knew something was wrong when he woke up that morning. He was very restless. And then so he was the first police officer killed. He drove to the police station, kissed his wife goodbye at 7:02 a.m. He was dead at 7:04 a.m. His body was left in the car because they were, had other things to do. They had to they took over the police station. They had to destroy the police station. And they came back. They kept walking by his body all day and shooting it again and again and again. It's so you see that, but this is the next point I want to make is we saw that, but then we went other places where we saw the same theme over and over and over again. We went to Hevron. We went to the tomb of Machpelah, and that day they had 40,000 Orthodox Jews coming because it was the Sukkot holiday. And I mean, they were all over the place carrying their palm fronds that they bring. And I'm going to forget the name of there's like a fruit that they bring with them. It's interesting. It's a fruit. You can set it aside and it will age and become like wood, but you can keep it for 20, 30 years. And it's the same. So we walked down the street where all the shops were closed after a terrorist attack by a Jewish guy in 1994 at the tomb of Machpelah. I think about 25 killed. And because of the situation, they just couldn't get a handle. They just shut down the whole Arab area on King David Street. And the shops are all closed. compensated the people and moved them into the Arab part of Hevron. There's a Jewish community there. And so then we went down to the Hadassah House, which in 1929 was the one of the sites where the Jews were murdered by Arab moms, by people who worked with them, by people who worked in their homes or worked at a factory or a business with them. The Mufti, who was a close associate of Adolf Hitler, had said that the Jews were going to destroy Al-Aqsa, and so people turned on them. Every Jew had to flee out of the old city of Jerusalem that day. And in the Hevron, they killed everybody that they could, and all the Jews had to leave Hevron. This is one of their holiest cities. The Tomb of Machpelah is the second holiest site in Judaism. It's the cave over where Abraham, Sarah, Rebecca, Isaac, Rebecca, Jacob, and Leah are buried. There's no doubt about that. And they go there to pray, but they don't go there to pray to Abraham. They go there praying, remembering what Abraham or Jacob or Sarah meant to them in their history. But everybody, just like what happened in Gaza, the goal was to get everybody out of there, kill them or get them out. All Jews left Hevron in 1929. But then it was these strong Jewish women who insisted on them coming back. Then we went to Gush Etzion, where Ari Fold was murdered 6 years ago, Hillel Fold's brother.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, the kid that stabbed Ari shot him and neutralized him to keep him from stabbing more people. That he's been released, and they're being released into the Arab villages right next to Gush Etzion, right next to Efrat, where friends of ours live. And so at Gush Etzion, they tell the story of the 1948 war and how many of them died. They have the actual bunker there where you watch the film, then you go out to the bunker where 30 or so people died, just like they had died on October 7th. It's a theme that's repeated over and over again. And I don't think, unless you're there, you can really understand exactly what it's like. So we went, I forget what day we did it, with Gush Etzion. We went to Efrat one day, met with the mayor of Efrat. I think we met with Yehuda Glick at his home in Jerusalem. He was stabbed or shot point blank 4 times about 5 or 6 years ago, almost died. He recovered. His wife got ill and died shortly thereafter, and now he's remarried, and he has a sort of a ministry to kids who don't have parents. It's like an orphan. It's not an orphanage, but they help kids who don't have all of their parents, which is a common thing in Israel because of the terrorist attacks. So then we went down to Efrat. We met with the mayor. We met with member Knesset Ohad Tal, who's with the Religious Zionist Party. Both Yehuda Glick and this member Knesset are going to be speaking at the media summit I just saw on the schedule. And we met at Efrat near Solomon's Pools. And this was where the water, I mean, it's, 289,000 cubic meters of water in these 3 pools. The water comes from Hevron and some other sources. And then through a series of aqueducts and piping, it's taken to the Temple Mount, where they found these giant cisterns, mikvahs, and that stuff takes a lot of water. And so they, Herod and then Solomon before him had put in place these aqueducts. They're in the process of being restored. So when you stand in Efrat, where we're meeting with the mayor and this member Knesset, Solomon Pools are below us in a little ravine or valley. On the other side is Bethlehem. Wow. I have to say a couple things about this. I know we're probably running up against your...
We're 40. We've got about 10, 15 minutes, so you keep going.
I think I might be able to fill that up. So when we went up to Shiloh, And when we were in Nablus and we were looking down on Shechem, I can tell you from personal observation, the building of new apartments and homes in Nablus, Arab villages, all the way up there is shocking. When I was at with Joel Kramer and my wife in 2017, there is a neighborhood next to the Tell at where Joshua had that famous battle. And there's no doubt that this is the historical site of the Battle of I don't care what some of these secularized archaeologists say. There's a neighborhood it's like Beverly Hills mansions. But we were there for a few hours with Joel, and I can tell you, Mark, we did not see any human movement in that neighborhood. In Nablus, and these big new apartment buildings, and then in Bethlehem across the valley from Efrat are these massive blocks of new apartment buildings. But on the way back from Shiloh, and then after we went to a Shabbat dinner at a rabbi's home in Efrat, so when we left Efrat, I looked back at the apartment buildings. It's like condos and that type of thing. And they're building 7,000 more for Jewish people there in Efrat. We went out to the new development. They showed us the plans for it. But the apartments are full of light. There's lights in the windows. It's dark out. I mean, it's, 9:30 at night. You look across the valley, you can't even see these Arab apartment buildings. There's not a single light anywhere. It's in Bethlehem. It's in Arab villages up to Shiloh. It's in Nablus. It's all fake. It's like a movie set to make it look like there are more of these Palestinian Arabs than they are. So it's one of two things. It's a fake out on demographics. I think it is. And it's also because they believe that people will come back and populate them at some point in time. But it's all done through the UN and these NGOs and everything. And I tell you, you have to see it to believe it. And I'm telling you, I bet if I went to Tel Aviv and I told people what I observed, they would say you're out of your mind. Because it's this normalcy bias that we have that, I mentioned it to somebody in Jerusalem in one of the Christian Armenian quarter, and they said that you don't know what you're looking at. I'm like, I'm a human being. I'm fairly intelligent. Don't tell me what I'm not observing, what I'm actually observing with my own two eyes. So we went to, I'll just a couple quick stories. We went to Efrat. We met with the mayor, and all these guys. Avi Abelo shows up as he's finishing his IDF stint. He gets on the bus and talks to us for a couple minutes. Yishai Fleischer came and talked to us, and they're all carrying automatic weapons, like with the extended clips. And you kind of wonder. So like when we were by Solomon's Pools, I was talking to a guy. He said, I'm a lawyer. I got to go get ready for Shabbat. I want to show you my house. And he's got a gun on his hip. He's probably 40-ish, 42, 45. And he goes, look at my house. See all those marks up there? Those are bullets that get shot at my house from people in Bethlehem. So don't tell me that it's us. So we go to the synagogue, one of the synagogues, and it's a pretty big synagogue. So I'm guessing there's at least 300 people there for Shabbat service. And I'm sitting there, and a guy comes in carrying like a Kalashnikov or AK-47, puts it under his chair next to me. And then another guy comes and sits down on the other side of me with the same thing. Then I look, and they kind of dance around, and they're singing it's Sukkot. They're celebrating. And the hostages have been released by this time. And the rabbis have guns on, most of the rabbis that were there have guns on their hip because of where they live, because the lessons of October 7th play out quickly. So after we went to part of the Shabbat service, we went down to an Orthodox rabbi's home. And I know we probably don't have time to get into something we'll have to talk about. Well, maybe we do have a little bit of time. It was a Shabbat dinner, and they were explaining things to people in the group who'd never been to a Shabbat dinner. And then the subject of gefilte fish came up. And and she had a plate up on, and to Gentiles, you mentioned gefilte fish, and they're like, what are you talking about? I don't know what it is, but to Jewish people, it's like a delicacy. And so he goes, well, people, it's a real fish. It says gefilte fish. So they wouldn't put fish after if it wasn't a fish. And his wife, the rabbi's wife, is looking at him like, I don't think you're I didn't know you were this stupid when I agreed to marry you 30 years ago. And he says, well, they wouldn't put that word in front of fish if it wasn't a fish. And I'm like, yeah, but just because they put fish after it, you don't say what any kind of fish, perch fish or grouper fish.
Or
You just
bass
say,
fish. Bass
or
fish.
bass fish. And then he said, well, she says, well, how we make it is you go to the fishmonger, you get a carp that's live, and you bring it home and put it in the bathtub. And then on Friday night, or as you're getting ready for Shabbat, you go in and hit it with a club and kill it. And then you parade the fish and you make it into this gelatinous fish paste. And to them, there's grades of gefilte fish. And I look at it, and even my wife, who will eat a lot more things than I will, she says it's nasty. And they act like, and I jokingly said there's this divide between Orthodox Jewish and Christian communities over Messiah and gefilte fish. They're probably the two big things that need to be bridged in the future to have a reconciliation. But she's, and then I went to talk to this tour operator, and I mentioned gefilte fish. She goes, oh, I never liked it because my grandma would always go in the bathroom and club the carp to death. and then make this parade out of it. And he goes, I never liked it, but it was so funny because it's like, I kept thinking of that Dan Aykroyd skit with the Bassomatic on Saturday Night Live 50 years ago. And so we spent a lot of time talking about gefilte fish, and I think we were not on the same page. They loved it, and some people like it, but I said it's a gelatinous fish paste. He goes, no, you puree it and then you make it into this gelatinous. Oh yeah, it is a gelatinous fish paste.
Well, you in your own wonderful way were pointing something out in
and here's another thing though. So look, there is big differences between Orthodox Jews and Christians on a number of things. But I'm telling you that, in my view, something is going on as things are being restored to the Jewish people, the historical connection to the land, and that sort of thing. And now they're talking about their temple.
Yeah.
And the rabbi's wife said, she works with Israel 365. She said, well, our sages say we're at year 5786. So we have 214 years to go. But the last part of this period to year 6000 really starts in 4 years. And I asked the question, so what if your sages have miscalculated 5786 and we're closer to 6000 than you think? Then the intensity of what's going to happen in these last 4 years is even going to be more dramatic. And I didn't expect an answer to that question. I was just trying to get people to think about it because everybody has the same thing. So I'll just say this in the couple minutes we have left. So we went to the farm where the Israel guys up in Samaria, Josh and Luke Waller, are doing their thing. And then we went down to the farm in Judea, a wilderness that Ari Abramowitz, well, 4 guys, but including Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel had started. We met with Ari. He was kind enough to give me his hat. And, excuse me. And it had, by the way, on the hat, it says, it has a patch. So he's in the IDF, and he said a lot of the IDF soldiers are religious, and they're wearing the same patch on their hat. I don't have it sitting here in front of me. It's the temple.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it says Messiah. So there's a messianic expectation on their part that we need to talk about. And we were there. They took us out. There's this very deep valley on their farm. And he said, this farm, that we bought this because of the significance of the land. And he goes, well, why? It's just a deep, dry valley. Now it is. He said, there's a prophecy that there'll be a great earthquake, the Mount of Olives will split, and a river will flow out from under the Temple Mount down through the valley. This is the main tributary through which that water will flow and sweeten the waters of the Dead Sea. So they're buying and living on top of what they see as prophecy, that what we agree is prophecy, and that type of thing. And then and we could do another program on this. We went with Elie Chacron to the city of David the last day, and we walked through. We walked up as much of the pilgrimage road as you can walk. There's still a little bit of it not open yet, but because we're with Elie, we got on parts of it that very few groups have been on at this point. Pool Siloam, I was there 3 years ago. You can't imagine the amount of excavation, but then Elie took us over to a place that he uncovered starting about 10 years ago he calls it Temple Zero. Why Temple Zero? Well, we have first temple, second temple, this temple, and of course the secular-based archaeologist said, it's just another little temple that you found, Elie. It's nothing, but it's different. The way it's constructed and organized is different than all the other pagan temples that are built there. And Ellie's conclusion is this is the temple of Melchizedek, where Abraham went and gave a tenth of his thing to Melchizedek, the priest of the Most High God, because he was worshiping someone different, because there was this connection there between the people and God, and this was the most. And our scripture says this is the priest of the Most High God. Hebrews says it's the priest of the Most High God and a type of Jesus Christ. And so we were there at that temple, Temple Zero. They said, oh, no, it's too early, Elie. It's too early. So he found organic material. He had it carbon dated 1900 BC, which is the time of Abraham. Now all those critics are quiet. So I'm just telling you, it's about a million things like that. I'm doing the sermon on Sunday, and the passages from Luke on life of Messiah, Jesus, young Jesus in the temple. So I'm going to bring in some of this stuff. We went to Bethel also, where Abraham had his dream. Not Abraham, Jacob had his dream of a ladder to heaven. And what you see, Mark, if you let yourself look at it, is this incredible biblical, historical, archaeological, prophetic convergence of everything in the midst of the geopolitics and I put a pic on Sunday. We were by the Knesset, and I put up a picture of the Knesset, and I said, tomorrow, this will be the epicenter of the world. Yeah. And it was, and it is. And so I think we need to get on board with all of that stuff.
John, something that you have you've regularly said, and it's said in our discussions, whether that's online or off, which is the fact that events are happening, and the complexity or the nuances of this at times are far greater than we could ever imagine. And as you've said, we've got to really work hard at times just to step back, to have that overall viewpoint. I mean, tell me, sorry, in the last sort of minute, tell me if I've got that wrong, because sometimes people want, well, there's going to be this event, and there's going to be that event, and there's going to be that event, and we need to step back. Sorry, John, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we have a tendency to sometimes I'm not sure what I try to stay in my lane. You know what I mean? And maybe my lane is to be an irritant to other people, or just to tweak them to think a little bit differently, because we have all of our charts and graphs and all this stuff. And sometimes I've kind of joked with some of my speaker friends. I think I tweet like all this stuff was happening while I'm in Jerusalem and Sukkot and Simchat Torah and the hostages release and Trump and Bibi and the world and, on and on and on. And I'm sort of like red alert, prophecy chart revisions incoming. And I think we need to be humble enough to admit that, look, we all agree on some major things. We have differences and everything. And I don't think we should divide over those differences. But I also think we need to be sensitive to, I've sort of started thinking of things in a threshold. Prophetic events that are prophesied, they're gonna hit a threshold where we will be able to see this is that which was prophesied. So we need to be like, okay, well, that might not line up with my chart. Okay, fine. Throw away your chart and revise it. Be humble enough to do that, because we're living it. And when this starts to all these thresholds start being met, it's going to be like a tsunami.
I hear you.
And, in a tsunami, if you just stand there and let it come, you're done.
Yeah.
If you head for the hills while you're looking over your shoulder, then you're going to make it through. So I just think we're at that point in time, Mark, that we need to be paying attention and sensitive to these things that maybe they don't line up with my chart, but they line up with scripture.
I hear, which is the most important thing. John, I just want to thank you for sitting down with me for a catch up, especially particularly as you've only just got back the last few days, and then you're going to be on a plane in just over a week, and then we will meet in Israel. And I'm very much looking forward to meeting you, sir. And
I think Roddy and I have some places we want to take you. But Roddy took me over to the southern steps of the Temple Mount area between the city of David and the southern steps. The actual steps Jesus walked on to go into the temple, the pilgrimage road that he walked on to come from the pool of Siloam, one of the locations of the only two miracles that he did in Israel. Pool of Siloam, he healed the blind man, and the pool of Bethesda, the lame man, which I could go on for a long time about the significance of that in light of the last media summit that I was at in 2022. I'm just saying there are some things, additional stories like Gaza, like Gush Etzion, like Hevron, that took place in Jerusalem in 1948. I'll show you a video when we're there. And by the way, funny thing, as Roddy and I came back, we walked through the square where the menorah is.
John,
it's in a glass case and it's empty, but we'll talk about it next time.
John, listen, thank you so much, and stay with me. I'll say goodbye to you on the other side, but thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant. All right. Thanks. You, my friend. Cheers.